Hello and welcome to Driven by Doing podcast. Today we have Beau McCoy joining us. Beau is the founder and CEO of SOLcademy, and he has ton of education technology, sales experience, and a lot of technology experience. So let us learn from him and his expertise today. So Beau, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Venki. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you to anyone who's listening or seeing this. I hope you enjoy the fun ride we're about to go on.
Absolutely. So let us start from the very beginning, Beau. So you graduated from Dartmouth and then started working as a software engineer. So tell us a little bit more about how did you get into software engineering and walk through those some of those early days.
Absolutely. I love technology from a very early age. I had the NES when I was 8 years old, and I was absolutely in love with anything technology coming out of, Japan. And I knew I was going to work in it. So when I got into high school, I learned about software development. And I'll never forget when I wrote my first software program that could draw a circle on the screen. I was blown away because you go from having nothing to actually seeing something. And so I went on to study computer science in college, and I worked for a bunch of startups in Southern California in my early 20s, and just love everything about innovation and creating simple solutions to everyday problems for people.
So you started off as a software engineer and started working as in a bunch of startups. So during that time, is it when you started thinking about, hey, one day, you know what, I'm going to build this startup and I'm going to work for myself. Tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey. And especially now that you worked as several startups, you also transitioned from technology to sales. So maybe first tell us a little bit more about how that happened and then walk us through the next steps in your journey.
Yeah, well, as much as I love writing code and programming, after doing it for about 5, 6 years, I started to get burned out from just staring at the screen for so many hours every single day. And I also just enjoy being around people. I'm an up and a mover and a shaker and a hugger, and I like interacting with people. So when I started learning about that, you could actually sell software and the kind of lifestyle that they had, uh, that sounded really nice to me to travel and see things. Back of my mind, I always knew that I wanted to start my own company, but I wasn't in a rush. When I started a company, I wanted to make sure that it was successful. And I believe that preparation is the biggest indicator of success. So I wanted to take my time and learn from other founders and investors and companies and see, what really makes a successful startup. So I took my time and I was able to fall into, luckily in 2014, an EdTech company called Go Guardian. That at the time was a very small startup. There was only 5 people, and we really grew that thing from the ground up. And it became very successful. We were able to sell the company for a bunch of money. And I took some time and travel. And I said, wow, that was an incredible journey. And after that, I was ready to jump in and start my own thing. And it's been a while. I mean, I've been working for, I guess, 16 years before I started my own company, and I'm happy to be here now.
That's amazing. Now that you had this wealth of experience and knowledge working for now the startups, and now that you are working for your own startup. So tell us a little bit more about how did you come up with this idea for Soul Academy, and especially during pandemic, you started this company, and tell us a little bit more about Soul Academy and how you're helping a lot of different organizations.
Absolutely. What I learned when I was at Go Guardian was this younger generation is incredibly autonomous. They like to do things on their own. They want to be in control. They don't want to sit back and be dictated to. They want to take ownership of their learning. And I knew that one day they would be driving the content that they receive. I didn't know when that would be. And so I was fortunate to get to travel, and I visited over 30 countries, primarily in developing areas in South America and in Asia and in Africa. And I'll tell you, what I learned was the biggest difference between developing nations and a country like the United States is the access to education and the opportunity that it provides. I mean, you have so much opportunity here in the US that we don't even realize, because you can go to Stanford or Dartmouth or something like that, and all the doors that opens for you. And I was like, wow, people really aren't that different. There should be a great way to connect them now that everyone is able to do things online. And so I came back to the United States, and I was living in Los Angeles, California. And I was working with a bunch of school districts that were lower socioeconomic areas. And when COVID closed the schools, I saw this huge disparity. So in the wealthier areas where I was living, the students were doing really, really well. They had internet access, they had devices, but most importantly, they had already been trained on how to learn online. But in the lower income areas where I was working, they had no internet access. They had not really that many devices, and they did, most importantly, they didn't know how to do online learning. So I didn't even need to travel to see the difference between first world and developing. I got to see it right there in Los Angeles, just a few miles away on the freeway. And I thought to myself, this is not okay in the year 2020. We should be doing a lot better than this. What can I do? And I realized that there are amazing educators, not just in the United States, but all over the world, who would love nothing more than to grow their reach and help more students around the world, but they don't have a platform for that. Teachers really don't belong on YouTube surrounded by ads and distractions. They don't belong on TikTok doing dances. There should be a platform where they can be teachers and embrace being an educator, which is, I think, one of the most amazing professions in the whole world. And so that's what SOLcademy is. It's an ecosystem for sharing educational content and resources. A teacher on SOLcademy has the creative freedom to teach whatever they want, however they want, to whoever they want. And a student can go on SOLcademy and learn from amazing teachers from all over the world. If you don't like your math teacher just because you were born in a specific zip code, you shouldn't be stuck with that teacher for an entire year and fall behind in math. You should be able to go to a website and find a teacher who you like and learn everything that you need, because again, this generation is very autonomous. And that's what SOLcademy is. It's that ecosystem for learners and for educators to connect and share amazing educational content.
That is just fantastic, Bo. So you saw that problem, like you mentioned about how you could actually see those both different audience right in Los Angeles. You do not have to travel anywhere, and that is very evident, across different states and different cities all across the U.S. And I think it's just amazing, like how you began this, the whole new revolution in this space, because we have seen a lot of students, especially after pandemic, locking down in their homes and now trying to learn with the resources that they have. And especially you're really helping the underserved communities. That's where the real problems are. That's where they need the real solutions to be able to really, I mean, make it a leveling field for everybody and anybody. And it is just the beginning. And especially after pandemic, we have seen how even a lot of organizations, it can be schools, nonprofits, they're open for ideas, they're open for innovation, which they have been maybe stuck for so many decades, or last few years. So I think this is the beginning of a lot more to come. And especially with tools like SOLcademy, we could just see the potential that many students could unlock, not just here in the US but across the world, one day, to be able to really self-sustain their communities and really help one another in their communities and beyond. So thanks for the work that you are doing with SOLcademy. So my next question to you is, you help SaaS companies to grow, and you have done it in the past with so many education technology companies. Tell us a little bit more about how education technology companies are different from the normal SaaS companies that we see growing so rapidly, growing making tons of revenue every year. Tell us a little bit more about how education technology is different and why this is that niche area that you're so focused right now.
Well, there's two huge differences about education and your traditional SaaS business, right? Your traditional SaaS business, you're going after one customer and they're ultimately in control of their budget, right? And this is very, very different in the education space. In the education space, you have many customers at the end of the day. You have the student, you have their parents, you have the teachers, you have the system, the school administrators, you got the school district people, you have the government, the governor, and there's all these people that you're trying to serve in education. Well, at the end of the day, it's all about the student and their outcome, but there's so many more people involved, right? You're not just selling to one IT administrator. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that education is really an arm of the government. So while a lot of people think that you're doing, a B2B sale, you're actually doing a B2G sale. You're actually selling to an extension of the state government and of the federal government, because that's where the vast majority of the funding happens. And so when you sell to a private entity or you sell to a government entity, the processes and the steps to getting that sale done are very, very different. And that's what I try to help people understand. It's not just about the school. You have to understand how the government operates and develop those kinds of relationships, which a traditional SaaS business, they don't sell to government entities at large. They're generally selling to private companies. And so it's just a very different mindset that you have to approach. And unfortunately, this is why you don't see the rapid adoption of technology in education like you do in other fields. It's Salesforce and all these amazing SaaS companies that grow super, super fast. You're just not going to see that kind of growth in education, because at the end of the day, it's working with government, and they just tend to be a lot more risk averse and just take a lot longer to implement things. But, we're trying to change that. And as you said, I think people are a lot more open to change and new concepts now than they were just a year ago. So I'm really bullish. I'm really hopeful that we're going to see rapid, sweeping adoption of technology in education in these years to come.
Absolutely. I think those are some great points that you touched upon, like how the whole mindset has to change when we are dealing with like education technology, because we are predominantly like working with these organizations that it's very hard to get in and make that sale happen. So thanks for
Mhm.
sharing those great tips and advice, like how to go about and creating that mindset. Because as first time entrepreneurs who are listening to this might be wondering, hey, I wanted to really solve this problem, because anything that is related to education in this space, it's all about the social innovation that has going to be make a huge impact for years to come in the lives of the people that this technology can serve. So it's
Mhm.
very important for them to understand, yes, it is difficult. Yes, it takes a lot more time than a normal SaaS business, but it's worth it. Once you were able to clearly define what are the key components or key problems that you're trying to solve, that makes it happen and go really fast once you make that clear. So now that you work with a lot of startup companies as well, so what are some of the key challenges that you see, especially for companies that are just getting started? What are the steps that they typically need to take in order to really understand their market, their potential, to be able to scale at a rapid pace, or at least focus on a specific niche area and then grow from there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of startups, they kind of rush to get a product into the market and then try to find the users for it. And I think that I believe more in this design-based concept where you really get to understand the people first and then build the product around them. Over the past 6 years that I've been working in education, I've spoken with, I don't know, 1,000, maybe 2,000 teachers in various contexts, and just get to know them and understand them better as humans and what really drives them. And so when I went to build SOLcademy, it was from that mindset. Okay, what are the biggest challenges that teachers face? Number one, technology is way too complicated. Number two, they spend way too much time on professional development and trying to find content and all these things. And so I built my product around very simple concepts that I know people are facing every single day, right? And I see a lot of great products that are can do incredible things, but at the end of the day, a brand is really going to only be associated with one thing, right? When you think of Apple, you think of the iPhone. Now you used to think of the iPod, and before that, you used to think of the Mac. When you think of Uber, you think of a car. When you think of Facebook, you think of a website. Like there's always a really clear association between the brand and what they do. And I think when you're starting out a business, you want to do a lot of things and you can solve a lot of challenges, but it's hard to just focus on that one thing and establish your brand on top of that. So whenever I work with startups, I always encourage them, number one, to talk to their audience, identify exactly who that is, and talk to as many people who fit that profile as possible. And then number two, come up with a prioritized list of the problems that you're going to solve, and then solve them one at a time, right? Start with priority number one, solve that, and then grow into, other things, because you can build an incredible brand doing something very, very, very simple, right? And you don't need to solve every problem in the world. You can grow very rapidly. At GoGuardian, all we did was filter Chromebooks, right? We didn't work on Mac. We didn't work on Windows. We didn't work on Android or anything else. All we did was a filter on a Chrome device. And now the company does many, many things, 6 years later, but we were able to establish this amazing customer base and build a great brand on top of one simple challenge.
Yeah, I think thanks for sharing that because, especially for startups, there are a lot of challenges initially to start it off, get it off the ground, and especially in the education space, we already know that it's that next level of challenge. And now that you clearly explained us how to focus on that one specific niche area, that what is the challenge that you're trying to solve, and who is that, and then once you clearly identify that and really go laser focused, and that's when you get the opportunity to really create that brand, and then explore the other opportunities, because there can be a lot of things that can be solved using the technology, but that focus has to be very clear at the very beginning. I think that's a great advice for a lot of startups who are listening to this. And my next question to you, Bo, is we talked about, you just recently talked about decentralizing education. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that, and how are we seeing those different shifts in the education space.
This is the most fascinating thing to me, right? So, like I said before, typically an ed tech company is selling to a government entity, and there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that comes along with that. And so, here at SOLcademy, while we absolutely love working with the existing schools, we also see this burgeoning decentralized educational system coming up. And what is this? I'll tell you a story. You could think of a 12-year-old student who maybe wasn't doing so great in math before, but now that she's been out of school for a year, she's really not where she wants to be in math. And so she goes back to school, and the math class is now way ahead of her. But the teacher can't stop teaching and go back and address where that student is. The student has to find a way to catch up on her own, really, or get some intervention from the school. How do you do that? Well, the parent says, I have a problem. I really want my child to catch up, but with schools moving forward, the child doesn't know what to do. And this is where decentralized education comes in. This parent can now access educational resources directly from the creator, whether that's through the school or on their own. Now the educational content that student needs to get back on track, to remediate and catch up to where the rest of the class is freely available at her fingertips. That's what decentralized education means. It means that every student can find the resources that they need and get them directly from the creator themselves. They don't have to go through any intermediary. They don't have to wait for anyone. They can take control and take all the steps that they need to progress their academic journey. And we're empowering creators, educators, to make amazing content. And we're empowering the learners and their parents to connect with that content immediately, just like as fast as you go on to YouTube or Netflix and find something to watch. That's how fast that decentralized education is going to connect you with your educational content.
That's just amazing. Now we are seeing this whole new shift, and now this is going to be for many years to come. And with all the new technologies and new tools that are readily available, it's taking off really really well. And let's now talk about the new creator economy. That's one of the things that you kind of also pointed out. Talk about how this creator economy is going to change a lot of things in the years to come, and
Yeah,
how it is
absolutely.
going to change in the education space.
I think teachers create a tremendous amount of value. And unfortunately, their salaries aren't really compensating them fairly for the amount of value that they create in our society. But at the end of the day, we can't just make teachers' salaries $250,000 across the board, right? I don't know that that's going to really solve the problem. But what we can do is create a way to compensate them for their work through an open market. And that's what we're pioneering on SOLcademy. An educator can put their resources onto SOLcademy and share them with the world, and people can pay for them. You can kind of think of it like Etsy or eBay or Amazon Marketplace, where people take their items and they sell them and people buy them. Why not do the same thing with educational resources? Because there's lots of parents out there who maybe can't afford $200 an hour for a tutor, but they can afford $10 for, how to help my child with 8th grade math. Right. And that's the creator economy that we're creating inside of education, so that schools can provide a way for their teachers to make more money without actually having to raise their salaries. And for teachers who want to augment the money that they make on top of their teacher salary, they now have a way to do that with teaching. They don't have to be a waiter, or they don't have to drive Uber, which a lot of these teachers are doing to make ends meet. Now they can get paid for their educational resources. And also, a lot of teachers, they want to make money without teaching in the classroom. They've done it for many years. I have a teacher who's been teaching for 30 years. She said, Beau, I'm just done with the classroom, but I want to continue teaching. And so we're providing a place for them to make enough money to support their lives through teaching, but without actually being in a formal classroom.
I think, especially with this creator economy in the education space, I think this is just the beginning, and a lot of teachers are not getting the value, or the kind of benefits that they would expect for people that work so hard to be able to make that impact that they are so passionate about. And now you're enabling them to be able to create those spaces for them to be able to leverage technology in ways that they wouldn't be able to do before. So really appreciate how you're kind of creating SOLcademy to be able to solve some of these challenges. Now, some generic questions about your experience, Beau. So tell us, what's the best advice that you got throughout your experience that really shaped whether your career or especially in the startup space as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of, for me, it always goes back to the golden rule, right? Treat people the way that you want to be treated. I
Mm.
think everything that I feel like I've had a very fortunate life. I think everything in my life that's happened has come back to that simple philosophy. It's like treat people right. If you treat people right, they'll tell you what you need to learn about your startup. They'll help you raise money. They'll help you build a great product. And that's truly what I believe. When I joined GoGuardian in 2014, I had a conversation with the founders. I said, look, I want to be the same person in this company that I am outside of company. I'm not going to live in this, corporate world where I'm going to be somebody else. I'm going to be the same person, and we're going to treat people like people. They're not customers. They're our friends, right? And that was how we built our brand and established these relationships with schools. I mean, they didn't know anything about us, right? We're just another company, but we actually treated them the way that we would want to be treated, and we built a relationship on top of that. So at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have good days and bad days. We all get angry and sad and, lonely and all these things. And that's what it's about, treating people as humans. And if you can do that, I think all the success in the world comes with, that simple step. Treat people right.
That's amazing advice that you got, that you implemented within your life that really helped you. So, is there anything that you would do differently if you go back 10 years from all the experience that you had?
It's easy to judge based on what I know now. And absolutely, maybe I would get into education earlier,
Mhm.
but I don't know that things would be the same that they are now. So I wouldn't change anything because I'm enjoying this moment, and enjoying the ride and where we are right now. Did I make some mistakes? Yes. But hopefully I learned something from them. So it's part of the journey.
Mm. So now, you had experience in the education space for the past, 6 to 10 years. And is it fair to say that, getting that opportunity in the education space helped you to find your passion in education? Because,
Oh,
you're really
absolutely.
passionate about, helping those underserved communities, and getting that opportunity at that right moment. Did that shape some of your career moments at that time?
100%, 100%. When you look back, you can also see all the steps that you took on this path and where it ultimately got you. And for me, I understood that nothing is more important than education. I mean, everything comes as a result of education. And I have the ability to help people all over the world improve their education, improve their lives. I mean, we have lots of problems in society today. And I think that if people were just educated, they would all go away. People who are knowledgeable, they're not going to start wars and cheat people. And, we have all these issues that I think would quickly be dissolved if people were just more informed. And so absolutely it helped me find my calling. And that's my mission. Well, with the time that I have left in this body, I want to help the education of as many people as I can.
That's amazing. I think it's very evident, the passion comes out when you talk about education and the kind of
Hmm.
impact that you're trying to create in this world. Because nothing beats education, because that's the ground up. If we wanted to solve the problems from the ground zero. It's about like changing those the key challenges at the root level to be able to make the impact that we wish we have seen over the years. And also this can be the new beginning, especially with everybody are now taking advantage of technology and how they
Mhm.
can leverage to be able to make or create that impact. So where can people find you or connect with you to learn more about your work and Soul Academy? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So the website is solcademy.com. It's SOLCADEMY.com. And you can find us on all social platforms with the handle at Solcademy. So at sign SOLCADEMY on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, you name it, whatever platform we're on at Solcademy. And please don't be shy. Just absolutely love connecting with educators. We also have a new Telegram group. We're at Solcademy on Telegram. You can join us there and join in the conversation. And it's one of my biggest joys is getting to speak with educators every single day. I truly want to hear from you and what challenges you're going through so that I can help you solve them.
I had so much fun talking with you and learning from your story and your journey in the education space. And I wish you all the very best for Soul Academy and many more projects that you're going to shape in your career. Thank you so much for being on the show. And you are one of those driven by doing who are taking action to make the difference that everybody wants to see in this world. Thank you so much once again for coming on.
I appreciate that. It's very kind, Venki. It's been a pleasure being with you. And thank you to anyone who listens to this for your time. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much, listeners. As Beau has mentioned, definitely check out Beau's profile and also Soul Academy, and definitely reach out to him if you wanted to learn more about Soul Academy as well. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.